Good morning, everyone, and thank you guys so much for joining. We have another slow-moving update so far in pre-market, and we saw basically the same exact setup yesterday. So far, like I said in pre-market, we're seeing a little bit of movement to the upside. One stock that is moving pretty big this morning is FedEx, FDX. They missed their earnings expectations, and they fell from like $252 all the way down to $235, and they're actually making new lows right now. If we look at some tech stocks like Apple, Microsoft, like they're popping up a little bit while we're starting to see Facebook really tank off. So, a lot of divergences in the market so far today. Tom, do you have any like notable stocks you're watching heading into open?
Man, Facebook's having a big drop there. I'm actually really watching Robinhood right now. I see some news on CNBC that Robinhood is to launch cryptocurrency wallets as Bitcoin becomes a bigger part of their business. And I think that's going to be pretty big for Robinhood if they end up launching those wallets. And I know you can already buy some cryptocurrency on there, but if they make it like more widely available and stuff, that'll be a lot better for them. And it looks like their stock is popping up this morning. It is pulling back a little bit here at open, but it did have a pretty nice gap up on this news, which is nice. And I'm also going to be really keeping my eye on these Chinese stocks with this Evergrande situation. And we can see that BABA today is actually gapped up and it's actually holding its ground pretty nicely today for a stock like this.
For sure, for sure. So thank you guys so much for joining. Welcome Santiago, David, Keisha, I'm Fierce, Vicky, Iranical, James, Mike, and Alex. Thank you guys so much for joining, and let us know what stocks you guys are watching. I know we're seeing a lot of different movement just across the board. RCL's popping up a little bit. AMC's pretty flat, so lots of different movement. One stock I was watching was UPST, Tom. It seems like they just keep breaking new highs every single day, and I wonder if the trend's going to continue.
Yeah, and it came up in pre-market again. It got pretty close to that all-time high right around 330. So I could possibly see it, Mike. I mean, it has that momentum. Pre-market's done pretty well for it. And the SPY did pop up in pre-market as well. So I could see it possibly breaking 330 and moving even higher. I never expected it to even break $300 yesterday and keep flying. So man, I mean, I could really see it. At some point, this stock has to come down, but I know we talk about this a lot. It's like Target or Home Depot. It just kept flying up and up, and it's just it's just in that momentous swing right now where we just have to wait for it to kind of come back down. And you can tell, like in the past, if you wait for the trend to start, you can usually catch a pretty good downtrend if you wait till the right time.
Yeah, it's tough to play these ones because it's like it just keeps going up and up and up. Like we can see it's up over, it's almost up 2% on the day already. And, like you mentioned, like a couple months ago, Target, Home Depot, and even Redfin were very similar to what we're seeing with UPST. And it's like, it's tough to plan because, like, let's say you buy a put on them, they might go up for another 2 weeks, and then your put loses 90% of its value, and then you're screwed, and then, you play another put on it, and you might lose there. So it's like, it's tough to play. So, out of, like, all of my experience with these setups, I feel like it's just much better to just wait until we start to see some, like the trend reversing and then get into puts because trying to catch the top on these things are pretty hard to do, if not impossible.
Yeah, and we can see that there hasn't really been two back-to-back red days at all, honestly, on this whole uptrend. And we can see in the past, like whenever it started to really fall to the downside, it had one, two, three, four, like 4 to 5 red days in a row. So, I think that we will be able to see that when it does happen. So waiting is probably going to be the better way to go here. And like Mike said, you might chase this 3 times and then finally say, oh, I give up, and then the stock will finally fall. So, it's a really weird situation, but I would say just do what Mike said and just really wait for that trend to kind of change, because right now it's just in that huge upward swing and you need that trend to break to the downside.
All right, so welcome Maine and Info to the stream, and we have info coming in mentioning Lucid. So Tom, let's take a look at it. This one just keeps on going, and it's up over 5%, or about 5%.
Man, I'm so glad. It finally broke out above that $28 resistance from yesterday, which was awesome to see. And I can't believe the pre-market it had. And this stock just continues to go. It's an awesome EV stock, Mike. And I feel like for the long term, it's pretty good as well. And I know a lot of investors have been eyeing it up. And, we all know how EV stocks move. We saw Tesla a couple years ago. And I know this is not Tesla by any means, but man, if they start to get some traction, it might be the first like actual other EV stock besides Tesla to kind of get some solid ground going besides NIO.
For sure. So Tom, like, give us some levels on this one. Like, what are you seeing? Like, what are your thoughts on Lucid? Like, because I know they've been running up very like with a lot of momentum for the past like couple weeks now. And like, do you think we're getting overbought, or do you think that this is just the beginning of a longer uptrend?
I do think it is kind of the beginning of a longer uptrend, but I do also think it's overbought in the short term. It looks like we've just had so much green days. We pretty much hit like $15 or $16 and went straight up since that hit. And we're almost up to $30. So if you think about it, that's almost like a 100% increase on the stock, which is pretty insane over the past couple of weeks. And, Lucid's a pretty popular stock too, with that said. So I could see it possibly hitting this resistance right here around $30. I think that's going to be a pretty big level for the next couple days. And even if we don't break it right away, we might break it a couple days later or something. But I could see a little bit of consolidation. Like I said, we've almost had a straight up 100% move from the bottom here.
For sure. All right, good stuff, Tom. And then we have Spacely saying, good morning, RWLK. So let's take a look. RWLK, it's looking not the best so far. It's down 15%, but can definitely pop back up. It's definitely holding its ground, especially off those supports in pre-market. We have Spacely saying, UPST is a beast. Yes, it is. It's definitely has a lot of momentum. And Tom, we have new all-time highs.
Yep, surprise, surprise. We broke out above 330 all the way up to around 334 right now. And I would not be surprised if we hit 340 or who knows, maybe even like 350 later on today. This stock has some crazy moves. We had like a 30-point run to the upside yesterday. So I feel like we could see that again today with the way this momentum's going. And it's really weird to say that because the SPY itself is just, honestly, since open has just been very, very flat and consolidating. And I just can't believe that UPST keeps getting bought up like this. Like, man, it's one of those weird phenomenons. I don't know if it's just retail traders jumping in or if it's HFTs doing this or what, but man, it's a crazy move. And I can't believe we're seeing this again.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, so then we have James saying, I want to grab some ATV at this price for long. ATVI. So, it's been taking a beating, and I don't think that's a bad idea.
Yeah, I don't either. And I'll tell you, they have that new Call of Duty game coming out in just like a couple months. I know that's usually like at the beginning of November if they don't delay it. So watch out for that. I think that could be a pretty big thing for them. We can see last November, whenever Call of Duty finally dropped, right around this white circle here, we had some pretty nice uptrends after that. And I could possibly see that happening again. Those games bring in a lot of money for them. And usually as soon as the game launches, and another good thing is that we can look at these numbers heading into the launch with all these like, what do they call it? Like pre-orders, like the game gets pre-ordered. So
yeah,
you can tell how many people are like pre-ordering it and stuff. And it'll generally either make the stock go up or down, depending on if those pre-orders are good or not. But I could see it going up over the next few months. And generally this stock does end up having a little bit of a downtrend heading into those game launches.
Very interesting. All right, and then we have Vicky saying, resistance and support on Coin, Fubo, and Airbnb, please. So Tom, Coin, I know it's kind of just moving sideways. What levels do you have on it?
Yeah, I have a really big support down here, right around 225, and it looks like we got pretty close to that before we popped up yesterday. It looks like we hit around 230 yesterday and then popped back up, but on a stock that's this type of price, that 5 points isn't too big of a move. So I would just say like 225 to 230 is a bottom support. And then for resistance, I'm really seeing resistance up here at like $250 even. So I think 250 even will be the best way. That will be the best one to look at on Coin as we start to rise to the upside.
All right, and with the next one we have Fubo, which is popping up pretty well.
Yeah, they actually have a pretty nice reversal change or a trend change here, it looks like. They're bouncing right off that $25 support, and that's actually a really good support there. Hit right off of $25.04 and then went right back up. So this one looks pretty good for a play back to the upside today and possibly for tomorrow. Looks like a pretty good consolidation play. And if we go back up, I see a pretty good resistance at like $26.50. I do see a little one at $26 even, but I see more of one at $26.50.
All right, with the last one we have Airbnb.
Yep, Airbnb. Let's go ahead and make Airbnb pass above 172. It looks like we got really close to that today, right at open, and came right down. So as an upper level today, look at 172. And for a lower level, I'm really seeing 166 as the lower level. We've hit off of that quite a few times. And it looks like if we fall below 166, we could get a pretty good move, maybe down to like 162 or even down to 160 even.
Good stuff. So let's go back to UPST just for a second. I was looking at the chart, and I think I have an idea of one factor as to why this stock is continuing to run. Basically, like when we saw AMC and GameStop and all the other hype stocks rise up, obviously like there was a lot going on with the short squeeze potential and also all of the hype it had and the retail traders buying in. But another reason those stocks exploded up was because they had a gamma squeeze. So basically what happened is, when you have all these people loading up on far out of the money call options, when you see large moves, the market makers who sold those options to you have to hedge themselves. A lot of times they hedge themselves through the form of shares or even buying other call options. So I feel like since we're seeing this accelerated, like exponential move on UPST, it's kind of being like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because then the market makers, because we already saw this huge move, now the market makers have to buy shares to hedge themselves. And if people continue to see UPST going crazy and buy more far out of the money call options, market makers will have to hedge themselves even more. So it was just like a quick little thought I had as to why UPST could be moving the way it is, especially for so long.
Yeah, and it would make some sense. Those market makers would definitely, they're not just going to sit back and just let the loss happen. So that they're definitely going to be trying to switch positions around. And, that makes a lot of sense. A gamma squeeze happening could be the way. And, I've thought a lot about how UPST could be going up like this. And I'll be honest, Mike, that seems to make the most sense out of everything I've came up with. So I could see it. And man, UPST is just on fire. It honestly looks like it's coming down pretty hard right now intraday, but I feel like it almost looks like yesterday it opened. It had a lot of up and down movement for the first 30 minutes. And then after that, it just went straight up. So I would really watch for this consolidation. It could make for a pretty good entry here pretty soon, especially maybe if we bounce off that 330 support, kind of like we're doing now. I think the entry could happen over the next like 30 minutes or so if this keeps going.
Good stuff. And of course, like the potential gamma squeeze isn't the only reason. Like they did have pretty good earnings, and then they were breaking out, and there were other factors involved too. But it's just one thing to keep in mind. And then another one I wanted to look at really quickly was Boeing. It looks like they're turning around pretty well, bouncing very well off that 210 support.
Wow, I'm actually really glad to see this one. And man, if this one would have tanked down to the downside, I would have felt pretty bad on Boeing. And I'm really glad to see it break back up through 210. It looks like we might end up holding that level, which is awesome to see. And I really hope that we hold that. We've been around 210 a lot. Look on the daily chart. We're like right on the trend line. And I feel like we could end up popping right back through here if we continue with the momentum. And that's actually a really good rise, Mike. But there is a lot of resistance around 214 to 216 coming up that we'll have to try to see if we can break out above that. But man, I'm so glad we held 210 because it was looking pretty shaky there for a couple days.
All right, and then we have Ironical saying thoughts on Adobe, grabbing shares for the long term. So they're a solid company, but I think that they will fall a little bit more. I feel like you will have better opportunities to get into this one. Just given everything going on in the market, plus just looking at this chart, like it's had a crazy move lately. So I really wouldn't even be surprised if it retested 600, but then even like the 560 to like 570 area.
Yeah, I could see it definitely coming down to something like that as well. 560 seems like a pretty good longer term support there if we end up breaking through 6, like you said. So I could see that possibly like 550 or 560. And with this stock, I've seen a lot of great articles about this company. And, Adobe's awesome. They have so many good, so many awesome like programs on the computer and so many different stuff that they do. And the thing with Adobe is that they're not going to go anywhere necessarily, but I would really eye up more of like a longer term entry, like Mike said, as it starts to fall, maybe down towards like 550 or like, even like 575 or somewhere like down to there. I think it could really have a nice little pullback here and create some good opportunities for the long term. And if we go look at like their max weekly chart, you can see how well Adobe's done over the past few years. So just don't be surprised for a pullback, but I love them for the long term.
There we go. Tom, how about this Uber action? It just keeps on going.
There we go. That gap up yesterday showed some really good momentum, and I'm really glad to see a continuation today. And I love the way it worked out too. Like you can see right at open, it had some problems staying above $45 and ended up just popping right back through there, created a nice momentum play this morning. And man, this would have been one of the nice stocks to day trade this morning on this breakout. This is honestly a pretty good setup, and I like the breakout here. I'm not sure how much further we can continue up intraday today, though. But man, that breakout was awesome, and I'm glad to see it continuing on the daily chart.
There we go. And then Maine said, wow, MRIN. Let's take a look. MRIN up 72%. Wow, it's booming up. Let me take a look at the news real quick. It looks like it looks like they have an agreement that begins after Scott here. There's like a bunch of news on this one. Hold on, let's see. Okay, so they announced a revenue share agreement with Google. That's huge. So that would definitely explain this surge. Of course, Google's a giant company, and that would definitely help a stock like this.
Yeah, and we've been seeing stocks get good deals lately. Like with Amazon, we saw a couple of stocks get a couple deals, and now we're seeing Marin get a deal with Google. Like, man, this is some of these smaller tech stocks are like getting some awesome movement out of these deals, and hopefully they keep doing these types of deals. Not just MRIN, but just these companies in general with some of these larger stocks. I feel like that's a really good way to go. And man, it honestly like look at how well this bounced off the $5 support. It consolidated right there for a long time before before having that nice gap. So you could have had a nice support play there if you would have bought it there. But wow, up 70%. I mean, only news with Google could do something like that.
Yep. There we go. All right. And then we have Clinton saying DISCB just got halted. So DISCB, it's up 23%. So yeah, it looks pretty good. Like you said, it's halted. I'm not sure what the reason is for the halt. I would assume volatility, but their Class A shares, which is DISCA, it looks like that is still going. Let's see, DISCA. Looks like that one's still moving. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like that one's still moving. So I'm not sure what the halt is for on the first one, but we'll definitely keep it on the radar. Then we have Kathy saying, check out Run, it's running. There we go.
Yeah, that's awesome to see, Mike.
Yeah, so it's up 1%, and I really like this stock.
Yeah, I know you talked about it a lot, and it's actually still right by that $40 support. It's in a great spot. I know RUN is one of those pretty good like solar stocks for the long term / like EV charging. I know they should be pretty good, and it just like looking at it right on support. A lot of these stocks are just creating such good opportunities, like RUN, PLUG having a green day too, CHPT also on support. Like all these stocks are right at support, and it's almost a nice time to create a nice fund. Like let's just say you have like $10,000, you might be able to buy like a couple $1,000s of each of these and have a pretty nice setup for the long term. Now, granted, they're all like in the same sector, so I'm not saying just to load up on just them, but man, there's a lot of stocks at good opportunities right now, like CHPT, like you said, RUN. We even have DKNG, and they are red again today, but man, they're getting really close to that $50 support, and that would be a great pickup on DraftKings at $50.
Here we go. We have Iranical saying SoFi is up 8%. Let's take a look. SOFI, yeah, it's starting to run pretty well. Looks pretty good. We are breaking out of that $16 resistance. It looks like they got an upgrade with a $25 price target as well. So definitely good news there.
Yeah, definitely. And that's some really good movement to see with Sophie really flying up like this. And I know this one had a lot of attention while it was rising up a couple months ago. And then that all kind of went downhill whenever those earnings came out and they gapped back down. And looks like they're filling that gap back up, Mike. And it almost reminds me of a play kind of like LCID, how they're kind of running up right now. It looks pretty similar to something like that, or just like one of these hype stocks. Like it has a lot of momentum to the upside, and it's in a pretty nice setup right now.
Love to hear it. All right, so then we have Clinton saying good time to grab some BABA or wait. So, that's the multi-million-dollar question right there, but it really depends on your risk tolerance. playing any of these China stocks have some very unique risks. So, it's not a risk I am willing to take. But if you are willing to, take a risk buying these stocks, and by all means go for it. Just know that, China's been kind of screwing over a lot of their own companies over the past year, especially. And if they make any regulations or anything, you can pretty easily lose a ton of your money with this. But at the same time, Baba's a pretty good company, and they're trading at a pretty decent discount. So it all comes down to your risk tolerance. If anything, maybe just enter pretty light.
Yeah, that's what I would maybe look at, is maybe just getting shares around here and just entering fairly light on the position. That might be a smart way to go. And the one big thing coming up is this Evergrande situation. The Evergrande might default. They're failing to pay bonds, and like all this different stuff. They're failing to make their payments, and it's a really bad situation. And if we see that end up crashing the Chinese market, these stocks like Baba, JD, even NIO, it sucks, but NIO is a Chinese stock too. Like, all those stocks could really get hurt if this Evergrande situation goes south. Now, do I think China is just going to let this happen? I personally don't think so. I think they might step in and do something about it. So I think that shares on Baba might be decent to grab. But in the end, though, these situations like Evergrande and just all these regulation stuff, like Mike said, create these really weird scenarios with these stocks. And right now, if you buy Baba before the Evergrande situation gets kind of fixed, I think it's pretty risky. If this situation goes south, who knows how much Baba might end up falling.
Yep. All right. We have David saying, wow, Hood may break 45. So, yeah, they're up like almost 6% on the day on news that Tom covered earlier with their crypto wallets, like the new addition they're adding. And I was actually looking into it a little bit, and I think it's actually a really smart move by Robinhood. I know that they don't allow you to transfer your crypto, but with this new software that they are implementing, it'll give people a lot more flexibility when it comes to their crypto. And I know that crypto is becoming a larger and larger part of their business, but it's also becoming a larger and larger part of the world overall. So I think it's a smart move on Robinhood to make this adjustment and add more tools for the crypto side of their business.
Yeah, it really is. And Robinhood's chief product officer even said, in quotes to CNBC, they said, "We're not the first to this market. So we've been taking our time to make sure that we build this in a phased approach. We'll have a few customers come in, iterate on the product, get the customer feedback, then expand from there." So that seems like a pretty good way to go. They might be building a pretty good wallet system. And with how many people use Robinhood, this could honestly be really good for them if they created this wallet. Could you imagine maybe they'll take a little fee or something for every transfer? Man, that would be awesome for Robinhood stock. And I'm not surprised to see it going up like this. And honestly, look at Robinhood on the daily, Mike. It's holding this $40 support pretty well. And I don't know, it's looking pretty tempting to me.
Yep, I'm with you. All right. Then we have Mike saying UVXY has excellent option premium. So absolutely. Just one thing to keep in mind is that the option premiums are very expensive for a reason, and that's because this stock is extremely, extremely volatile. So if you're looking at maybe selling some calls, keep in mind those have unlimited risk, and it's probably not the best idea to short naked calls on a volatility play. However, if you're looking to maybe short some puts, that can be decent. You just have to be careful with it because you look at the long-term trend of this stock, and it definitely falls a lot more than it rises. So yes, the premiums are great, but just know that there's a lot of give and take.
Yeah, and these stocks are designed to fall like this, but they do have huge rises in the middle just because of the way they move with the VIX. But I'm with Mike. I ended up getting in shares down here. I'm averaging around 21.80. And I'll tell you what, if I would have had calls and if we would have seen these huge drops, I might even be losing right now, even though I'm averaged in I got in around 21.80, because these moves have been so significant and the volatility is so crazy that it makes calls pretty hard to trade on these types of stocks. I'd almost personally like what I personally did. I just went with shares because, look, I'm averaging at 21.80. And if the shares go up, let's say we went up to $30 like we did a couple days ago, I was up 40%. That's pretty significant for just shares alone.
Yep. All right. And then we have Sean saying, what's going on with MJ stocks? Cron on the move. So let's take a look. If we look at CRON, it's up 4.5%. Honestly, I haven't been following these ones too much, but I could see on Thinkorswim News it's saying that the cannabis market in the U.S. shows signs of movement toward high-quality sectors. So that's one article I saw. And then if we go over to like Tilray, I'm seeing news about what does it say? Cannabis banking measures and National Defense Authorization Act. It looks like they have some acquisitions going as well. So to be honest, I really haven't been following these ones too much, but it's good to finally see a nice green day on them.
Yeah, I've just been seeing them slowly and steadily. Just they've all just been dying off. Just the whole sector has just been going down over the past couple months. And these stocks do this. They get kind of in these weird funks where they go down for like 6 or 7 months, then they end up flying up for like a couple months out of the year. Like we can see Tilray in 2018 and 2019 were running up very significantly, had those awesome days hitting $300, and then they for almost 2 years straight just went straight down, and now they're flying, or now they started to fly back up like earlier this year, and who knows how long now it's going to take them again. But hopefully they hold the $10 support or somewhere really close to there and end up going up, because like I said, these stocks have been going down for quite a while now, and I feel like a lot of investors might start coming in at these lower levels.
All right, we have info saying go Boeing buy. So Boeing, it's looking great. I've been watching this one all morning, and I really like the way it's moving. I think it's great for the long term, and maybe even a short term play.
Yeah, and it looks like we might actually get all the way up towards that 216 resistance today. And that's actually, Boeing's had a huge move this morning ever since open from 210 to 214. That's the biggest move they've had all week so far. And it looks like it's even a bigger move than any of the moves they had last week. So I'm really glad to see it with Boeing. And I think that we've all been kind of waiting for this for a while. And I really hope the trend continues over the next couple days, because I'd really like to see a breakout above 216. That's my main level to look for over the next day or two. And if we see it really break 216, I think it might be pretty good for the next couple months. And we might be back into that upwards type of swing, kind of like what we're starting to see with AAL and some of these airline stocks, how we're starting to really consolidate and starting to really get up there. And Boeing is kind of like in that same, they're not the same exact sector, but they're definitely influenced by the public airline stocks.
All right, Uber is still going, Tom, up almost 5% on the day. He has a ton of momentum. And then we have Stefan asking about Moderna. Let's take a look. mRNA, they're down a little bit today. I mean, they're just like consolidating. To be honest, I don't really see opportunity with this one in the short term. Like, if we saw a huge dip, I feel like it'd be good for like the longer term. But honestly, with this one, it's still at like a pretty elevated price, and like it doesn't even have any momentum right now. So it's really just not a play for me.
Yeah, me either. And the thing is it's been flying up a lot lately. And keep in mind that a lot of this reasoning for Moderna flying up had to do with vaccines and stuff like that. And just keep in mind that, like, once, I guess the main thing is like with these vaccines, it's just there's such weird situations. Like let's say people just like out of nowhere just quit taking the vaccine, or let's just say people already got the vaccine so they don't want to get another one, or something like that could maybe make the stock go down, just because these vaccines might not be used as much in the future. And that's what worries me a little bit, is Moderna went up so significantly in the short term that it's going to take some great news for them to keep up here like this. And I'm just going to be eyeing them more of up to the downside.
I mean, the biggest thing for me on this one is, we're kind of, it's kind of like already like up, you know what I mean? Like, you look at this max weekly chart, it went from $11 up to $497. So it's like,
Yeah.
I just feel like out of all of the opportunities in the market right now, with Boeing at the levels it's at, you got Corsair, you got even some of these tech stocks relatively low, like Apple, after the fall over the past week. You have Plug Down, CHPT, RCL, Neo, Palantir, a bunch of different stocks. DraftKings falling. Like, I feel like there's just so many other better opportunities. And you know what? Moderna might continue up, but I just feel like it's really not worth the risk. And, always trust your gut no matter what. And it's definitely been doing very well over the past couple years, which is great to see. And then we have Maine saying, check out AEMD. Up 40%, no news though. So let's take a look. AEMD, yeah, it's booming up there. I wonder if this is just like retail trader hype, because as Maine mentioned, there's no major news to go along with this.
Yeah, AEMD had a great morning, and like you said, up 40%. This is a very significant move. And yeah, I mean, it's really hard to say because there's not anything really coming up on Thinkorswim or nothing on Google too much either about it. So it's a really hard one to gauge right now. But if we pass above $5.50, it could act as a pretty good like intraday play, or like a good penny stock play if you end up catching it at the right time. And it looks like $5.50 might be holding up as a pretty good resistance here, as some red is kind of coming into the stock now.
All right. Then we have James saying, any ideas on Snap? It looks like it can go either way. That's on AP. I mean, I would say it has more upwards momentum than downwards momentum. But then again, like this one is, I feel the same way about this one as I do with Moderna. Like, I wouldn't say it's horrible, but I just feel like there's so many other better opportunities out there where it's just not worth the risk. And that's just my opinion. They had a great day yesterday, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. And even if, like, let's say they come up and they break all-time highs and they run from, let's just say $75, let's just say theoretically like up to $90, right? Then what is that? That's a nice 18% increase to the upside. But like, let's say you got a stock like RUN, and it runs from $40 up to, $60. Like, that's a 40% increase rather than a 15% increase. And these stocks are also right on support. So like Mike said, you're buying low on a lot of these other stocks, whereas everybody always wants to buy stocks whenever they're at highs. And here, let's just give an example with RUN here, right? RUN had a great couple years, but look, if you would have bought in at these highs, sure, you might have done good for a few days or a couple weeks, but as soon as that stock started turning back to the downside, that'd be pretty upsetting to sit through like a 30% loss for like 6 months while the stock consolidates, So it's always better to buy stocks at their lows. And I know it almost seems too easy. Everybody always says buy low, sell high. And it seems like it's too easy, but in the end, everybody always wants to buy high instead of buying low. And it's just one of those things that if I feel like people should really think about that a lot more, especially newer traders that are looking to invest, because I knew in the beginning, I used to try to buy these stocks whenever they were up at highs too, and it just never worked out well. But whenever I started buying them at supports and stuff, it worked out very, very well if you hold them for the long term.
All right, so we have Mike saying, thoughts on buying deep in the money calls on UVXY and then shorting the stock against them. So it depends on what you're trying to do. So let me know in the comments like what your goal is with this strategy. But there are a couple problems that I see initially with this. The first one being that UVXY, it gets in these phases where it explodes up out of nowhere. And what happens during these phases is you won't even be able to short UVXY. And even if you can find shares to short, you will have to pay crazy high interest fees, because I was actually looking into a strategy similar to what you mentioned. And like, yes, you might be able to find some shares to short, but even if you do, you might have to pay like 20% interest on those shares. So that's the first problem that will significantly eat into your profits. But then the second problem is in a play like UVXY that has a crazy high implied volatility, especially right now, right around like 150 to 160%. Normally when IV's high, you want to be selling the options rather than buying them. So in my opinion, this is like kind of like a double lose situation, because one, you're going to be paying a lot of interest for the short shares on UVXY, even if you can and that's if you can find shares to short. And the second problem is you'll also probably lose on the options, like even if they expire in the money, which is likely, there's a decent chance that you will lose just because the options are expecting a decent move. And I know that they're deep in the money, so they have less exposure to like volatility rather than like an at the money option. But I don't know, those are two big problems, and I would say the main one is just even finding shares to short.
Yeah, that's going to make it really hard to trade, because keep in mind that like big institutions, like how me and Mike said earlier, these stocks really go down a lot for the long term. And these big institutions, they like to short these stocks on the way down the whole way. So it's always hard to borrow with these stocks because all these big institutions, they just take up all the shares right away. There's only a certain amount of shares that these brokers allow to be shorted. And generally, like with UVXY, you can just look at this long-term chart. Like it always goes down over the long term if you like wait long enough. And if you can kind of get through these times like right now, how it starts to pop up, then you'll be okay. But the problem is if you can't hold yourself up during these uptrends, then it can end up being bad shorting VXX and stuff. But I feel like that his position, I think it's a pretty smart position. It's just that or a pretty smart strategy, Mike. It's just the whole thing about it is just all the situations with this stock, UVXY. It could work out a lot better on like a safer stock falling down even.
Yeah, it can. So, yeah, Mike, let us know what your goal is with that strategy, and we can definitely give you some other suggestions that can probably work better. So, great comment, Mike. And then just taking a look at the overall market really quickly, Tom, it looks like the SPY is up 0.82%. It's starting to rally a decent amount. Don't forget that we have that FOMC press conference later today, which should add some volatility in there. But overall, it's good to see the market popping back up.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that press conference later, Mike. Do you have any thoughts on that or any input? I know that everyone's always looking to see like what Powell's gonna say and stuff, and I know it's impossible to guess what Powell's gonna say, but generally he's been kind of making the market go up. Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so like you said, of course, no one knows for sure, but I would say that Powell makes the market rise a lot more than he makes it fall. He always finds a way, like he always has he has a very good way of wording things and keeping investors relatively calm. So I would say, just based off of that, the market is more likely to pop up than it is to fall. But of course, anything can happen with these press conferences, and either way, they normally add in a lot of volatility.
Yeah, and even if he does say some bad stuff about the market, he always comes right back with something like, but the Fed has these tools that we can use to help fix the situation and all this stuff. So he really comes up with some stuff to say in these press conferences. And man, it really does help the market. You're right. It seems like the past 2 or 3 press conferences, he's kind of came out and talked, and it's actually made the market kind of go up, which was kind of crazy. Everyone's been waiting for him to kind of make the market crash, but he's been making it go up like every single time. And you're right. It's just, I would say more of look at it to make it go up rather than down, but it's really hard to say because nobody really knows. But I mean, unfortunately that would suck if it made it go down, but every time he talks, he does kind of bring some good optimism in. And he always talks about inflation just being transitory and stuff. So as long as he keeps talking about that stuff, it might be pretty good again.
Here we go. All right, and then we have Iranical saying, finally, UPST red. I was just looking at that, and the question is this here to stay?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really hard to say. We can see a couple days ago, it had a similar move. It had a great big move up at open, and then had a couple days of red, and then finally got that big break again. So it's really hard to say. I really hope that this is the top, though. I've just been waiting for the top to happen for a long time. So I'll definitely be eyeing it up. If I see another huge red day tomorrow, maybe or something, then it might be time to look at maybe some puts, but we'll have to see what ends up happening with the movement and how the overall market does. But man, that's a pretty big pullback. And I don't know what caused this with this stock, but with it being this overextended, at some point, if we get a pullback this big, it might start accelerating off into a bigger sell-off pretty soon.
All right, and then we have Maine saying, thoughts on Disney after crazy sell-off yesterday. I still like it for the long term, and I think that the market is starting to realize that it was a little bit of a dramatic sell-off yesterday. We're starting to see it pop back up a little bit right now. Either way, they're a great company. They overall have great numbers going for them, and while it does suck to see that negative news that they did post yesterday, I still like them for the long term.
Yeah, and it was kind of a weird situation. The CEO gave one of those interviews, and it was kind of unfortunate. He kind of really made his stock tank. It was kind of a bad situation, to be honest. It was almost his fault, but he came out and said that that the Delta variant's causing some delays. So of course that's bad situation. He said that Disney Plus isn't having quite as big of the subscriber growth as they quite thought. So that kind of made it go down too. And it's just a weird situation. But the good news is, though, is look at this. It's honestly, besides those, like, look at my 5-minute chart. It just had like a 10-minute downturn here. Besides that 10 minutes, it has honestly just recovered up since then. So that's a good thing to see. And hopefully we can break back out above like 174 here or 175. I think that would make for a pretty big recovery. And I really hope that Disney gets back up here because, like you said, that was a very dramatic sell-off and just such a weird situation yesterday in the middle of the day.
All right, another stock I'm really looking at is RCL. Looks like it's breaking out above resistance right at this, you could say, like $84.70 level. It's looking pretty good intraday and on the daily, in my opinion. I've been waiting for a breakout like this for a couple weeks now.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty good too. Like RCL, CCL looks pretty decent too. It's not breaking out like RCL is, but all these stocks are kind of turning themselves back up. Even the airlines are doing pretty good, up 1.7% with AAL today. Looks like DAL is up 2%. So these airlines and the cruise lines look like they are on the uptrend again. And they've been consolidating a lot at their supports. Like if we look at, let's go back to RCL really quick. They've been sitting a ton here right around this $80 support. And I feel like it could end up really popping off of this. And, you know, they've been in a pretty bad downtrend for like a month or two now. So it's not like we've been going straight up necessarily. Like we have had some consolidation time here. And I personally feel like we might come up and test $100 pretty soon.
All right, good stuff. MGM's popping off, up 5.5%. It's really exploding up. Looks like they're about to break out too. And it looks like... let me see. Okay, so it looks like the news is saying that Entain shares surge for second day on increased DraftKings offer for MGM partners. So it looks like MGM is looking to benefit from this news.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy, actually. I'll have to look into that a little bit more, but that's great for MGM if they can benefit on that. I mean, of course, that's awesome. And, you know, they're not at their all-time highs yet. I looked at their max weekly. Back before '08 happened, MGM was doing great, flying up to $100 a share. But man, right now, if they could break out above like $45, MGM might be able to have a pretty good run. And the last time they broke 45, it looks like that was the time they ended up running up to 100. So if we look at the max daily chart right here, I would say make them break out above $45, and it could be a great pickup for shares for the long term. And I've heard great stuff about these casinos for the next few years, especially stuff like Las Vegas, because apparently like with COVID, they've been able to like raise prices and all this stuff. And they're able to like really take advantage of all this inflation stuff going on. So it might be pretty good for the companies. And I don't know. I mean, this is weird to see MGM benefiting from that DraftKings deal though, Mike.
Yeah, I believe they're actually partnered with Entain, so that would make
sense.
Oh,
wow. That's actually pretty big then, I guess.
Yeah, so I definitely have to look into the situation more. But either way, it's good to see him popping off. Palantir is also starting to recover back up. It's up like 2.5% on the day, and we're getting closer to that $30 level.
Yeah, what was the ticker?
Palantir.
Palantir. Sorry, missed what you said there. But yeah, Palantir's having a pretty nice recovery day today, right back up there. And you're right, it hit that 26.50 support and also that support like right at 26 quite a bit. And it looks like it has a lot of momentum today.
Good stuff. And then we have Clinton saying, Any flying to the moon right now. ANY, it's up like 6.5%, not doing too bad. They've been struggling a lot over the past couple weeks, but they're definitely holding that like $6 support pretty well.
Yeah, and they've hit off of there quite a bit. And I know this one had a lot of momentum last week, Mike. We saw a one day where this stock ended up running from like $6 all the way up to like $8. And that was a pretty good move. So hopefully we can see another bounce like that pretty soon. That would be awesome. And like you said, it's been on support for a long time now. So it could be time. That support's right around $6. And if we do end up getting a pop, there's a pretty big resistance around $7.50.
Love to see it. All right, so Tom, like what stocks are you watching so far today? I know the market was like slowly grinding back up and we're seeing a lot of mixed momentum.
Yeah, I'm actually really eyeing up some of these China stocks right now, like BABA. And keep in mind, with all the Evergrande stuff going on, this is more for day trades and stuff. Like if we can break out above 154, I think BABA could end up having a pretty good move today on the intraday setups. Also, these marijuana stocks are doing great. Like like CGC, for example, with a nice 4% up day. That's awesome, actually, for one of the safer marijuana stocks. Usually stocks like Tilray and ACB move a little bit more than CGC, but today CGC is actually outperforming Tilray and stuff, which is great. And then also, I'm really eyeing up. I know that it doesn't have anything to do with DraftKings or MGM at all. I just wanted to bring that up because we just talked about it. But LVS is honestly having a pretty good recovery day today off their bottoms. I know lots of people have been eyeing them up lately, and they've been getting down towards support. It could be a good pickup for shares here. But as far as like intraday trades, I'm more of just looking at these cruise lines, airlines, then also just eyeing up stocks like Baba. But, these cruise lines are doing great today, Mike. I'd love to see a continuation out of them.
Yeah, for sure. All right, and then we have Vicky saying coin resistance and support, please. So COIN, it's up like 1.5%. What levels do you have?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at $245 on the way up. That looks like a huge resistance over the next day or two. And I'll be honest, coin kind of broke out this morning. We had a break above 240. I could see this one running up to 245 today or somewhere pretty similar. And that's not a big move by any means for a stock like coin. It'll only be up a couple percent if we get up to 245. So it won't be it's not a crazy move to the upside or anything like that. So it could definitely happen. And I love the way it broke out above that 240 resistance this morning. Once we broke that, we pretty much had a pretty nice move to the upside. So I could see a nice continuation, like I said, maybe up towards 245 or something similar to that.
And then since we broke above 240, that level will act as support, right?
Yeah, definitely. So if we, I'll go ahead and actually draw a trend line here on the chart. And if you guys are looking at these stocks and you see them break out above their resistance levels, just start using those resistance levels then as supports, and you can eye this up for the way back down. So like if we see, coins start to come down later in the day, it might hit 240, have a little bounce off of that and create a great intraday entry point for you. Like you might be able to get into some calls at that bounce, and then they might bounce right back up towards 242 or something. And people do that a lot with these day trades, especially as they break, like you said, then it just becomes support.
All right. Then we have Jorge saying DDOG is only way is up. So DDOG, it's exploding right now. It looks like it broke all-time highs. It's just really running up, and man, it's on a great uptrend.
Yeah, and I've heard great things about this company too, and I hope it keeps going for a while. Looks like we're getting pretty close to that big psychological level, right at $150 even. But I don't know. I feel like we could possibly break up through this, Mike. It almost reminds me of like a UPST or like a Target. It honestly has that same type of setup. It like gapped up to all-time highs and then just continued its trend to the upside slowly but steadily, but it's definitely been going.
Love to see it. All right, so Tom, do you have any last-minute stocks or anything you're watching for the rest of the day?
I'm still eyeing up those cruise lines like I talked about earlier, but some of these other stocks I'm eyeing up today are some of these like ETF stocks like ARKK and some of those stocks similar to that, because a lot of these growth stocks are right at support right now, like CHPT, Plug, BLNK, and they're actually having decent moves today. Like Plug's up 2%, moving pretty well. CHPT's having a green day off support, which is nice. And these stocks are still at good buying opportunities. I feel like I've said it so much the past few days, but in a couple months, whenever these stocks are at $30 or something, people are going to be wishing they bought at 20. So it's going to be a pretty weird situation, but they're all right at support. And it seems like pretty good plays out of most of them right now. So good plays there. And then also DraftKings looks pretty good. And as far as plays today, like I said, the cruise lines are definitely what I'm looking more for, like day trades for today, but I'm really eyeing up longer term plays right now, like CHPT, Blink, DraftKings. All those are looking like great opportunities to start to sell some puts on.
Love to see it. And then we have Jerry saying, may I get some Tesla TA? So Tom, hit us with those Tesla levels and what you're seeing.
Yeah, they're still trading between this range here. A lot of people like to laugh at trend lines sometimes and stuff, but man, like look at the way it's kind of traded between here. It's just bounced repeatedly, and we failed to break out of this blue trend line again. And whenever we had those like 5 green days in a row last week, I was really hoping for a huge breakout above 750 and up through the trend, but it didn't happen, and Tesla kept moving to the downside, which is unfortunate. It's so hard to say with Tesla right now. Personally, there's a huge resistance at 760. So if we fail to break that, I feel like Tesla might go back into the downtrend. I feel like Michael Burry still has his short positions. And my main concern right now is look at the S&P 500. If Powell or something speaks today and the market ends up tanking, or if China's Evergrande situation goes south and the market ends up tanking off that or something, these stocks like Tesla could really fall down again. And, I know that I love Tesla for the long term. They're an awesome company and they innovate really, really well. But I just feel like for the short term, they could end up popping down just because they're failing to break out again. If we see them break 760, I think it could be awesome, though.
Love to see it. So thank you guys so much for joining today's stream. We had a great time. And guys, don't forget that we have that Powell press conference later on in the day. So definitely expect